time, I'm going to be painting a gigantic lizard on top of a colossal temple firing a gigantic laser beam. There's only one rule in the jungle, and it's one-page rules. It's tabletop time.
So this kit goes together in multiple pieces as you'd expect, and the temple itself is multi-tiered. It's a little bit of a puzzle, but you just really need to match up the different vines and you're set to go. As with any model, dry fitting is the key to success. And there we go, the whole thing put together. Now I'm just going to make sure it fits nicely, and I found that gluing it all at once rather than trying to solidify a couple of pieces at a time made the best fits between all the parts. And then just with the top piece on, we are right to start working on the lizard itself. Now, I'm going to assemble most of the lizard here. I'm going to glue together his entire body line as it was from head to tail, but I'm only going to glue on the front limbs, mostly so I can get a nice clean join in those. The hind legs have these nice alcove that they settle into on these bands around his legs, and I'm going to leave those off for now just so I can get everything nice and primed first. Then I'll assemble everything together after that. At least that's my game plan. Hopefully that turns out well. I personally just find that painting things together as one cohesive canvas is how my brain likes to do things. I know that a lot of people like to paint things in a segmented way, sometimes even on the sprue, which boggles my brain. I do really appreciate with this kit that 90% of all the joins are hidden behind folds or bits of armor. It goes together really nicely, and you can see here that basically the only part you could see is just under the chin, which is going to be mostly hidden anyway. So huge shout out to the people who made this model. Alright, so I need the best, the coolest inspiration for how I'm going to paint this massive dinosaur. So I'm going to do a little bit of research.
It looks like he's trying to regurgitate something.
Haha, yeah.
Nice. Now, for the rest of the lizard.
Squeak.
The belly of the beast. And sort of everywhere else purple. Yay, I love it. Red's cool.
I thought you were going to paint this yellow.
Shh, the viewers don't know that.
And now the green.
Green zenithal. This is one of the few times I've actually painted something in segments. I usually like to put everything together at once, but there's not really a choice here, so we're doing it this way. I'm just doing a quick spritz of blue over the metal to give that sort of quick sheen, and that'll be base coat and the underpainting for it. So now it's just down to all the nice details and layering. Fits in my hand really nice.
Now I'm going to glue everything together, and glue doesn't really bond bits of paint together. It just sort of holds the paint and not the model that you want to be, say, putting a giant lizard on top of a temple. You want that to be pretty solid. So you can see here I've masked off the different areas with tape and blue tack just to make things a bit easier and to let the glue bond between, you know, the actual bits of resin. And now steady. Whoop. There we go. With just a little bit of wiggling, we've got him on there. And so I'm just going to peel. Oh my goodness. This looks like I'm unwrapping chocolate. This is the forbidden chocolate. Don't eat that. Yikes. There we have it. He's all assembled, and it's starting to look really cool already. I'm really liking this mottled pattern, and hopefully it carries through underneath all the painting I'm going to do. Pew pew, pew pew, pew pew.
I really should have painted the vines before I stuck on the lizard. Now I have to paint around him and deal with my decisions.
Oh well.
Scoozy.
Whoa. Scene transition. Now, if you're enjoying this project so far, I would highly recommend that you go and check out One Page Rules website and their My Mini Factory. If you love the aesthetic of these models, go and check out their Patreon, where every month you get access to their latest releases. And also, by being a patron, you will get a very nice discount on everything on their My Mini Factory store. If you want to play your games with them, these can be active stand-ins for any army nearly, and they also have their own in-house developed game system, One Page Rules, which is available on their website. All links are in the description, and I would highly recommend going and checking out their stuff because they have some really cool takes on what is possibly more generic factions within fantasy and sci-fi, including some of their own completely unique factions to them. Now that hasn't won you over already. Hopefully my painting of the rest of this guy will win you over in the end. So I hope you stay tuned and let's get some more paint on this guy.
So one thing I discovered while painting this is that the vines that
I'm picking out in green to stand out from the rest of the temple, I think they're actually designed to be pipes and technological cables, which makes sense. This is a sci-fi mini, and that's really cool, but I don't think I'm gonna change anything about how I'm painting it, because I think it's kind of cool that you think, they're vines, oh no, they're power cables. So I'm just gonna highlight them a little bit more to make them, perhaps they're, actually metal rather than a sort of plastic thing, so they might stand out a bit more. But yeah, so I'm gonna keep going with the green, but I'm gonna just make them pop a little bit more, and that can be a bit of a discovery for people who are looking at this, except you who are now privy to this as well. So yeah, I'm still in the mind of fantasy and like lizard men, so I think that just sort of played with me a little bit. So I'm gonna keep going with that.
Now, I'm pretty happy to use whatever brushes are available, whether they be simple, very cheap ones or high-end brushes. So I'm just going to use these Artis Opus dry brushes to give the entire temple a heavy dry brush over with grey to bring out this stone effect while leaving that lovely mossy feel underneath. And when I decide that's not quite enough, I'm going to go back and add in a whole lot of stippling to add even more rocky texture to it, to really give the impression that this is in fact rock. It'll help separate this texture from the metals and the skin as well. Brush, 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 stipple, 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 stipple. And now I come to the most daunting part of this, painting the entire lizard itself. And I first thought that I was just going to go through and, do the traditional layering, pick out the skin in a very nice but quite laborious way. However, I found that the texture on this model is actually fantastic, and I could just easily overbrush here, which is kind of like dry brushing, but you've got a lot more paint on the brush. So it doesn't quite fall into all the recesses, but you still get this really nice layered and shadowed effect. So I'm going to go over this in a few passes, ending on some lighter dry brushing. When it comes to the underside of the model, I'm going to apply a lot less paint or change color. This will help create a sort of variance in the shadows and also break up the model itself. I don't want it to be one solid yellow. That will be quite boring and unnatural. So I'm going to add a whole lot of hues, add some pearly blues, some terracotta, and even just a little bit of ochre just to break up the yellow a bit. And now for the main parts. This is where the light will be hitting the reflective scaly skin of this beast. So I'm going to go in with quite a heavy, strong yellow. This is the part where you'll actually decide, yes, this beastie is yellow. And so that's what I want to communicate here. I'm still being fairly messy. I'm getting yellow all over the metal parts, but that's fine because I've get to do the metal parts and they're going to be messy themselves. Now with just a very fine, light pass with a bone color, just to give the skin a little bit of a scaly sheen. And while our adorable little gecko had patterns along his body, I decided not to do patterns, as the metal bands wrapped around his body will sort of give that variance for me. My gut feeling is that if I added colored bands to the skin itself, it would sort of break up and camouflage some of the strong metal lines that will be on it later. So I'm going to go with that, and hopefully I made the right decision. Let me know what you think. Here I'm just going to paint some of the fleshier parts of him, namely inside the mouth. Now I'm going to go to quite a stark highlight here, just to get that really glossy and reflective skin appearance. Then I'm going to go over with a couple of red and purple shades, just to bring up the vibrance of it.
All right, so I have now more or less finished the skin. It's at a good spot. I can come back to it later and give it a few final touch-ups. And I've sort of realized what this really reminds me of. Metal Greymon from Digimon. I think it's there. Anyway, I think it looks really cool, and I think it's time to move on to the metals. Now, I'm gonna go with some really nice dark silvers to contrast it with this really nice bright yellow skin. That's the whole idea here, to have that really pop up and separate. I'd like to have a pattern on the skin as well. That would be really cool, I think, but that sort of camouflage might detract from the outline of all the metal parts, which is what I want to really accentuate and bring attention to, like all the parts of the sculpt. And so I'm gonna just keep the skin like this. It's, shall we call it plain, but it'll help make the rest of the model look really cool. And that's what I want to show off, just how cool the model is. I'm gonna go for some nice metals and some details in bronze, I think. Bronzy brass. I think that's very lizard man. So we're gonna do that. Back to it.
Now what I'm doing here is actually stippling on my metal color. This is actually a scale 75 blue cobalt metal, which I really like the appearance of, and I think it's gonna go really well with this blue undertone I already have on the metal parts. So I'm just gonna pretty heavily stipple this on, making it nice and textured. It's very chipped. This lizard scrapes himself on a lot of trees. He's very big. There's not really any highways for him. So this metal is gonna be a bit pitted. One of the upsides to painting the metal like this is that it really allows the undertones to
pop through and just shine in all their color, which I think is really important in a metal sometimes. Even if this is a true metallic metal and it's sort of shining, as it were, reflecting the actual light in the real world, I like to be able to control the color on my Mini. When it comes to the face, I'm going to spend the most time and the most care here, as I really want to curate the effect on the face, as it's the part you're going to spend the most time looking at, probably. I'm really going to make sure that I get all the edges and just get a really nice effect happening. Now, there's a whole lot of metal on this guy, but I'm going to break it up and create a strong variance between different parts by just adding a wash on some of the pieces. Here I'm using Vallejo's Express Range Black Lotus, which is actually quite a soft black wash. So by using this, it'll allow the color to shine through even this one, but it will be a darker tone, so I'm going to have these a darker metal strap as opposed to the rest of the armor. As some of the bigger plates need to be broken up a bit, I'm going to add some brass elements. One of the big rules of miniatures is contrast. You really want to work the colors happening here, and since I've gone for a very strong and bright color for the skin, for all the claws and things, if I used a white or a bone color, you'd really still lose it among the rest of the skin. So I'm going to go for a very dark color for all the spines, spikes and teeth jutting out of him. Here I'm just going to work a strong red wash around the mouth to pop up the vibrance there, as it wasn't quite where I wanted it before, so I'm going to keep applying it until I'm happy with it. And I'm also going to water it down even further to make a glaze and apply this around some of the metal mountings on his skin, as those areas are probably just a little bit uncomfortable, and it also represents the blood vessels being fairly close to the surface of the skin there. Now, a little gunner is certainly important despite riding on Godzilla. And this little one definitely needs some attention on him, so I'm going to paint the metal to match the rest of him, and then work on a nice strong vibrant blue I think will work really nicely for him. Upon adding the blue, I decided it was actually just a little bit strong, so I mixed in a little bit of jade color there, and I'm just going to wet blend it in until I'm happy with it. And now for a nice pupil, going for a strong orange color for the eye, I think really stands out on the blue. Now I'm going to have very large eyes for him, keeping the pupil itself very small, which sort of alludes to intelligence in an animal, and I think that really suits the skinks. For the feathered crest here, I really like the red undertones already established, so I'm just going to continue that trend and I'm going to pop it even further. Starting off with some deeper reds, working out all the way to a nice vivid orange. Now, while I'm really happy with the rest of the model, I think the eyes are always the most important part of the model. It's the window into the soul, and it will really help bring a miniature to life. The bigger it is, the more important it is. And I'm just going to start around the edges with a red, just to get the feeling that it is in a living creature and there's some flesh around the corners of the eye. Then I'll paint the rest of it with a sort of skin color, but just a bit of gray mixed in there to represent the eye itself. Then on a bit of a whim, I wanted to have a really striking eye, so I'm actually going to go with yellow, but inside that, I'm going to put a nice strong stripe of green. I think that's going to contrast really nicely, these two colors, and then I'll finish it off with a nice stripe of black. Now, if you have trouble holding the brush really steady at home, sometimes all you need to do is anchor your elbows onto the table. That can really help. And bring your palms together like you're clapping, and that will hold a really strong position for painting minis. However, this guy's a bit big for doing that, so I've just got him on the table. Now, I'll finish this off with a couple of reflections on his eye, as I want it to be really glossy. Then I'm still not quite happy with the tongue, so I'm going to give it another pass over, this time with a violet wash. Can't forget the little gunner, and now I think it's time for some reveals.
A huge thank you to our sponsors. It is you that let us do this sort of crazy thing as a job, and it is hugely appreciated. And I hope that you in turn appreciate the work that we put out for you to watch. If you're interested in becoming a patron, follow the links below. We have our own mini painting Discord channel for patrons where you can post your own works, get feedback from the rest of the community and from us directly. Every month we also hold a mini review in which we can do this basically on camera. So again, if that takes your interest, the links are in the description below.
And here it is. Thank you so much for watching, and a huge thank you to our sponsor, One Page Rules. Again, if you want to check them out and all their amazing miniatures, check the link in the description. Hope you enjoyed your time watching me paint what is absolutely a zany-sized lizard, and subscribe to our channel for more looniness. Maybe check out our gigantic marathon in painting a huge board for ArcanaCon. Links in the description. They're everywhere. Check the comments. There's people there. They're lovely. You're lovely. Good day.